Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and if you're here for the very first time, it's an absolute pleasure to meet you. I'm Jane, my husband Mike is behind the camera. We're British, early retirees, we've got no debt, we've paid off the mortgage, and we live a thrifty, frugal and money-saving life here in Brittany in northwest France. And every Wednesday we open our home and invite you in for a midweek money chat. Now, you have sent us lots and lots of questions, and I can't possibly answer them all in today's video. So I'm going to start today. I'll answer some of them on Friday, and I'll answer the rest of them on Sunday. And if you have any further questions, leave them in the comment box below. Let's get going. First question that we were asked is, do you have a side hustle? And if not, why not? Let's go into that. When you are self-employed in France, you are self-employed and registered to do one job. So, for example, Mike and I are individually registered as professional liberals, and within that regime of professional liberals, we are registered as YouTubers. So that is what we are registered to do. Now, I hope French people will put me right if I am wrong here, because as far as I can find out, you cannot have two Siret numbers. So you cannot have a side hustle to do something totally different. I might be able to set up another YouTube channel, for example, and extend that. Mike, as a YouTuber, might be able to do other people's YouTube work for them. But if you are registered to do a job here and you pay your social security payments based on that, so we are registered as professional liberals, we are registered as YouTubers, we therefore can't just go out and start doing another job. And if we wanted to go and do another job, for example, if we wanted to be dog walkers or dog minders, we would have to have a French qualification in dog care, in animal care. We'd have to have gone to do a college course and a French qualification to do that. If we wanted to be childminders, I'd have to have a full French qualification, probably a university degree in childcare to do that. So France is not one of those countries where you can just start up and say, oh, I'll just do something else. There are things that I could do as well. So for example, Uber drivers here are registered as Uber drivers. So you have your Siret number to be an Uber driver. But like I said, you can't have two Siret numbers to do two separate jobs. Also, luckily, living in a country where the economy is such where people can have one job and live on it. People can have one job and live on it. They can have a job working in a factory that will pay their rent, that will give them enough money to live on. It will be beneficial if they're a couple and they're both doing that. But that is the nature of this country. We have universal healthcare, we have affordable food. People have affordable rents, the bills are affordable. So why haven't we considered it? One, legally, you can't. It's really difficult to do that. Secondly, we're registered as YouTubers and as professional liberals. So it would be very difficult, which leads me to my next question. The next one goes into the question of why don't you sell your quilts? And I get asked this question a great deal. Now, if I want to be registered as self-employed and registered as a merchant, I can't stand here in front of you and be a YouTuber, because that is a different regime. I can't be registered to do the two jobs and have two different Siret numbers. But if I wanted to give up YouTubing, for example, and just make quilts and sell quilts, I'd soon starve. And quilters will soon starve because people just won't pay for what it costs. So let's break down the cost of what a quilt would cost. If I were to go out and buy branded quilting fabric to make a quilt with fabric that people really, really want, So for example, I wanted to buy Lorry Holt fabric from her company basically. And I can't buy it in France, I can't buy it in Europe. I have to import it from the US. So I have to pay for the exchange rate mechanism that the banking does. So I have to buy it in dollars and pay the fee for that. I then have to pay for the postage to get it here. And it then makes the quilting fabric that I buy twice as expensive as you pay in the USA. I know everybody watching isn't from the USA, but some of you are. So it makes it twice as expensive. And then the backing material. So I wanted to buy the wide backing material, so it's all professionally made. And then I wanted to add in the time. So if I add in just working at minimum wage, if I add in the bare cost, I can take that cost. So it takes 50 hours of making a quilt, and that's professional speed of making a quilt, 50 hours for a professional quilter to work non-stop making a quilt. You're looking at 750 euros as the bare cost of making a quilt. People won't pay that. They absolutely won't pay that. And I've seen online handmade quilts made by the Amish at that price. Obviously, some of them are considerably more than that, and my quilts aren't handmade. So that's why I don't make quilts for sale. I make quilts as cheaply as I possibly can. I buy the quilting fabric online if I'm going to buy it. You will see that on my previous video that I showed you. I buy my fabric from people destocking. I buy some vintage fabric from charity shops. I buy from Facebook Marketplace when people are selling. I buy my batting in a whole roll to save money. I buy vintage sheets and duvet covers and sew them together to make the backings. So they're pretty cheaply made. People don't want to buy quilts that are pretty cheaply made. They want to buy quilts that are made from beautiful fabrics. Moda fabrics, just as an example, those quilts do sell really well. So it's not as easy. So it goes back to that point again about why we don't have a side hustle, because we're already registered in one job. And there's another part to this that I'm going to go into. Now, let's talk social security payments. When you're registered as self-employed or you have a job, the big chunk out of your wages, out of your salary, out of your takings is social security payments. And by January next year, it will have risen to 26% of gross takings. Now, when you're self-employed, that's just a given. So if I made a quilt and those were my costs, you cannot offset costs. You don't pay social security payments on profit. You can't offset when you work at home part of your premises as a business premises. You can't do that here. You pay 26% of gross. If you earn enough to pay taxes, which we don't, we would pay 14% of everything on top of our tax allowance. And you can look up French tax allowances, because for each person, how many children in your family, whether you're married or not, all of those things, those tax allowances are different. So there's another reason why it's not so easy just to set up another business or have that. And people come quite unstuck here if they have a hospitality business, if they have a chambre d'hôte, a bed and breakfast, or a gîte. You can't offset any of the cost. You can't offset the electricity, the water bill, the laundry costs, you can't offset your own time, you can't offset wear and tear. So if you charge 100 a night for a room, or you have a gîte that's 100 a night, 26 euros of that straight away goes to social security payments. You can't offset that. So that's another reason why quilting would be, or manufacturing of anything as a one-woman person, as a one-woman business, would be crazy. Because like I said, you can't offset any of the costs. So, it's a standard joke in France is how do you make a small fortune in France is come to France with a big fortune. Not that we did. So I think that's answered all your questions about, why we don't have a side hustle or why I don't make quilts for sale. Because like I said, if we're registered as YouTubers and we wanted to do those things, we'd have to close our business as YouTubers and stop doing that. So that was 2 money-related questions. I'm now going to answer 2 of your personal questions. Whenever we invite you to ask us questions, this question gets asked all of the time. And this is the way it was worded this time. Are you proficient in French? And if not, how do you get by? Well, I'm going to give you some examples of how when I lived in the UK, I dealt with people who were not proficient in English. I went to hospital. The nurse who looked after me was a foreign nurse. She wasn't proficient in English. She managed to look after me wonderfully. I couldn't fault her care and attention to me. Her English was broken. It was not perfect, but she had the English that she needed to do the job. My dentist was Polish. My dentist had very straightforward English with no niceties, no chit-chat, no informality. It wasn't in her language skills. Did she look after my teeth perfectly? Absolutely brilliantly. I've got into taxis in the UK. Mainly the people driving the taxis were Romanian. Did they have English? Very basic. Did they get me from where I wanted to be, for where I wanted to go? Yes, they did. All over the world in various countries, there are immigrants doing their very best with the language skills that they have. And we are immigrants here. We are guests in this country. And we do our very best with the language skills that we've got. We continue to take online classes. We've been on a waiting list to take real classes. We've made our way up that waiting list and we go to those real classes in the autumn. But I'm going to share with you examples of where I have been in places where I have had to make do with the language skills that I've got. I went for a mammogram, and if you go for a mammogram, when you walk through the door, you are mentally prepared for the questions that they're going to ask you. You go up to the reception. They're going to ask you your name. They're going to ask you what time is your appointment. They're going to ask you for your ID. They're going to ask you for your medical card, and they're going to ask you for your insurance card, of which you hand over, which they check and they hand back. They will tell you where to go and sit and wait, and somebody will call you. When you go in for a mammogram, you're not having a chat about philosophy. They're going to tell you which part of your anatomy they want you to put in which machine in which order, which arm to put up, which arm to put down, which way to turn sideways or the other way. And then they're going to inform you that hopefully a doctor's going to come in and check your breasts. Not a lot of conversation is going to carry on there. And then you've got the basic language conversation to have with the doctor and say, have you found anything? Is everything okay? And you can ask all of these questions with pretty basic language skills. They will then give you a beautiful picture of your boobies to take away and all the breed out and information from that you can sit and translate it in your own time. And the important bit is at the end. Do you need to see another doctor for another appointment? I went into hospital for a biopsy. Nobody at the door, nobody on reception, all of those people asked me a question that I wasn't ready for. Again, what's your name, please? Okay, who's your surgeon? Thank you very much. And you know when you're going to go in, you go in for your pre-operation discussions, you meet the anaesthetist, you pay for your room, all of those things. Thinking of something else, going for what we British people call a smear test, or French people call a frottis, I don't know what Americans call it, pap test. going in for that. You know, you're going to have basic conversation, aren't you? You know what's going to happen when you get in there, and you know the basic conversation that's going to happen. If you go to the dentist, you know you're going to talk about teeth at the front, teeth at the back. It's pretty basic levels. And I'll leave you with this as well. I spent the last 7 years of my teaching career working in special education. And I no longer taught GCSE English, but I taught functional skills English. And you can have a very low level of functional language to function in society. Imagine this, if you would. A 4-year-old child was lost, and it walked into a shop, and it had enough language skills to say, I'm lost, I need help. And people would ask very basic questions to see if they can help that child. And that's what happens when you have a lower level of language skills. People tend to slow down. I might ask them to repeat that, please. I might ask them to, could you say that gently? We say doucement, doucement. We don't say slowly. We say doucement, s'il vous plaît, doucement. So if somebody walks up to me in the street, totally up to me in the street, I live in a touristy area, I know pretty much they're looking for something. I'm listening for those question words at the beginning of a conversation. I'm listening for that est-ce at the beginning of a conversation, which means there's a question. So when you have low levels of language skills in another country, you turn up those functional skills. So like I said, you know, when I go to the hairdressers, I'm asking them to cut it. I might say to them, I want it so many centimeters short, please. I want it cut short. I might say to them, I know when they ask me when I wash it, do I want a treatment, a deep treatment? Do I want just conditioner? I know what they're asking me. And another thing you do as a second language speaker, when you go somewhere, you kind of rehearse it in your head before you go in. Every now and then I will be thrown a complete curveball, but it's very, very rare. The other part of it, if you go into a store, the doctor's surgery, the hairdressers, with French, it's just culturally normal. There is no small talk. Nobody's asking you, how was your day? Did you find everything? Another example would be if you go into a restaurant. They will say hello, they will bonjour. No one asks you how you are. No one's, you know, j'espère vous allez bien. Nobody's going to say that to you. It's not part of the culture. So they'll come up, they'll give you the menu, walk away, come back, 10 to 15 minutes, plenty of time for you to have made your decision. And they say usually 3 words to you. Vous êtes choisi? That's it. Have you chosen? And you can hear on the end of it, the word goes up, and you know if you can hear the inflection, the word goes up, you know that that is a question. So you have chosen because of the inflection is, have you chosen? Have you chosen? And then when you get your meal, nobody comes back to ask you, is everything okay? Do you want anything else? Because you've got your meal. That's the end of it. So there you go. It's a very interesting thing. And as somebody who taught English in schools for 20 years, and then went on when we came here to become a TEFL teacher, and I taught Chinese children online, I have a great interest in the acquisition of language. And I know it is incumbent upon us to put a lot more effort and time into language speaking. And I think it's something towards approaching 60 that it seems to be increasingly difficult for us to retain what we've learned, but we continue to practice online every single day. And like I said, we've been on a waiting list to go into real French classes, and we start them in the autumn term. The next one's kind of personal and it's kind of money related at the same time. And it's this, it says, why don't you bring home more pantry items that are less expensive when you visit the UK? Now, if you've been with us for over a year, you'll know that we do go to the UK every year on an annual trip to visit family. And that when we are there, we do shop and we bring back things that we just can't buy here. And I'm going to give you an example. As British people, we eat a condiment called brown sauce. Now, brown sauce is the flavour of Worcestershire sauce, but the texture of ketchup. So it's a pouring sauce, and we would eat it with fried eggs, with grilled bacon, with grilled sausages. It's something that we eat. They don't sell it here, so I do bring it back from the UK. But I'm already making my list of pantry items to bring back. You can't buy spices here in the way that I would like. For love nor money, I have not found in any shop here garlic powder. Garlic powder. Brown rice, whole grain rice. It's a real speciality niche product here. That's really difficult to get. Other things that we buy from the UK that are way cheaper are things like antihistamines, anti-diarrhea pills, painkillers, ibuprofen, those things. But I have got an appointment with my doctor beginning of September, and I will ask her for to put these items on prescription for me, because if they're on prescription here, then I don't pay anything for those at all. But yeah, we do bring things back from the UK. But when it comes to pantry items, yeah, everything's a bit cheaper in the UK. Flour is cheaper. Things I do bring back are things like gluten-free flour, half the price of here. But when I was in the UK last time, and I shopped in the big Sainsbury's in Plymouth, in the centre of Plymouth, I shopped in the big Sainsbury's out of town, I noticed there was a real shortage of gluten-free products. So, you know, if I looked on the shelf and there were 4 bags of flour, I wasn't going to take the all 4 bags. I would only take the 2 and go on to another store. But I will be preparing my list of things to bring back. I will be preparing things like Chinese sauces, Indian spices. I will be bringing back as much garlic powder as I can, gluten-free flour if it's not in short supply. And the other things that I bring back from the UK are things like Branston pickle, which again has the taste of Worcestershire sauce, and it's a dark relish. I bring back piccalilli. I can buy piccalilli here. It's not the same, and it's very expensive, and I will bring back a few jars. But we're limited financially, and we probably spend £150 on groceries in the UK to bring back, and some of them last. We really make them last, especially that brown sauce, which, as I said, is a condiment, the flavour of Worcestershire sauce. Yeah, if I had a van, I don't know what the limits are of what I can bring back into France. I can bring back €400 of goods into France. I don't know whether that's food or non-food, but I always keep all of the receipts when we come back through the douanes, which is the customs, the border checks. They've never checked my car yet, but I've got the receipts ready, and I always keep it under that amount. Because when we go back, we'll often buy other things as well. We'll often go and buy clothes for Mike that he likes from Marks and Spencer's, or he also likes clothes from Next. So keeping it under that €400 is quite tight. It's not a lot of money to bring in. I'm not sure whether that's €400 each or €400 for both of it. I've been on the douane's website. They don't make that clear, and I don't want to be the person who, just in case, as we're coming through border control, because they do check cars at random, they take everything out, they check everything in it, they want to see all receipts, and if you've got stuff on you that you shouldn't have, or that is over a certain amount, it's just confiscated. So I don't want to waste my money. So do we bring back pantry items from the UK? Yeah, we bring back about £150 worth of groceries. So that was 4 of your many questions. If you have a question, leave it in the comment box below. Is anything I've told you today surprising, especially about the business arrangements and social security payments arrangements here in France? So leave a question, leave me a comment. We read all of them. and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.